Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Hey.
Hey girl, hey, how are you keeping warm in this cold weather? Okay.
Moving quickly.
Hey, I think that's the only remedy. Hey y'all, come on in, roommates. Come on in. Yeah, here rumor has it we call our supporters roommates.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, that's dope, right? They are so interactive. They are such a great support for me. I think I was telling you a moment ago that I ventured out last July to start this podcast after God had been telling me to go. And they've been supportive like to no ends, right? But happy Tuesday. Come on in, roommates. Come on in. We have a wonderful house guest that I am super excited about being here. We got so much to cover, Miss Aisha, that I'm just going to jump out in the boat without a life jacket. Come on, y'all. Come on in. So let me introduce our house guest, okay? She is a passionate leader, an unwavering advocate for Black communities in Chicago, particularly in the vibrant Austin neighborhood. Her pioneering work includes co-creating the youth-led Austin Safety Action Plan, ASAP. Get up on it ASAP, okay? A nationally recognized diversion strategy that has set a benchmark for communities across the country. I ain't done yet, I just gotta swallow. She is a dynamic force in youth and community engagement, specializing in diversion and violence prevention. Her work as a community engagement specialist has aided in bringing to life the Austin Hope Center, a more than $18 million development in partnership with Stone Community Development Corporation and Lurie Children's Hospital. As if all of the aforementioned accomplishments are not enough, she is the founder and strategy lead of Root to Fruit Youth Foundation, which has garnered recognition from the Obama Foundation. You're just showing out now, Aisha, okay? And most importantly, and surely not the least, and not everything in a nutshell, she is a mother. Roommates, I need for you guys, without further ado, to please welcome our house guest, the neighborhood hero. You know I want to leave that out. The neighborhood hero herself, Miss Aisha Oliver.
Hey. Hi, roommates.
Oh my Lord, that was a mouthful. And what accomplishments, Aisha, you have done in such an early age. Because 40 is literally the new 20. We can, they were saying that 10 years ago, but that is the truth. I just kind of put your age out there because I think you're celebrating. But listen, I tell people my age all the time because it is the blessing and the wisdom that makes it all worth telling, right?
Absolutely.
So, guys, I have introduced this wonderful house guest. But y'all know we always start off, Aisha, with a biblical reference, okay? And the biblical reference always ties into what our topic is. And I'm going to reiterate the topic in a minute because I'm going to be quiet and you about to steer this ship, okay? But we're going to start off with the biblical reference that comes from Proverbs 19 and 17. And it teaches us that whoever is kind to the vulnerable lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. And I chose this, so I am not a biblicist that knows every verse in the Bible. But what I do is I Google so I said someone who serves their community. And this and amongst what others came up, and this is the one I decided to choose. So, with that being said, who is Aisha Oliver. And how does one get coined the term, the phrase, the name from your own community, the neighborhood hero?
That is, I love that question because it gives me an opportunity to really, first and foremost, thank my parents for the example that they set for us when I was younger. So growing up, I was born in LeClaire Courts on the southwest side. My family is, a lot of my family is still over there.
On Cicero.
Yep, right off of Cicero. So growing up in LeClaire Courts, you know, on one side of the street you had the homes, the other side of the street was the projects.
Yes.
So my great grandmother and my grandmother and my aunts, they stayed in the homes, but my mom and me and my brother and my dad, we stayed in the project.
Okay.
And I have to always be vocal about the fact that LeClaire Courts taught me what community is. You know, growing up in an area that was predominantly black, and you had people who were part of the Great Migration, like my great grandparents who came and bought their home there, and then you had all of those black families who also lived in the projects. Like, I feel like I grew up knowing everybody in my community, and everybody had a hand in raising me, even as a young girl. So I just, when they started to tear down LeClaire Courts, we moved back west where my mom and dad are from.
Okay.
We moved back west, and
when you say back west, are we referring to the west side?
West
of
side.
Chicago?
Moving back to the west side.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Now, you know, that's a big transition because LeClaire Courts was just like it was a neighborhood. It was a little, you know, space where it was just predominantly black. But on the west side, it's like block after block after block. And
Yes.
my parents bought their first home, and after I think maybe my first year or so there, and I was in high school, I was like, man, this feels different.
It feels different.
It's not like the courts. I was still getting off
All the
on the
time.
bus, going right back to the courts out of
Okay.
school every day. I was going out there.
Now,
That's what I was used to.
how old, sorry to cut you off, how old were you when you made that transition from LeClaire Court to the west side? Around about.
I would say when we moved out there, I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
I was in the 8th
Okay.
grade when we moved back west. Actually, I was in the 6th grade. My parents bought their first home when I was in 8th grade.
Okay. Got it.
And it was that the transition from the apartment to the house, you know, my parents took so much pride in that as their first home that they, you know, would know the neighbors and everything. But my brother and I was just like, man, like, I don't have no friends out here. We don't know none of these people. He still go to Curie, so he got to go all the way back outside to go to school. But I think, you know, for me, the first thing that really caught my attention was the fact that I didn't see that unity that I was used to in the courts. And I don't think that it wasn't there. It was just that I wasn't able to see it at the time because I didn't actually grow up. Like, for the first, you know, part of my life out west, I was in LeClaire Courts. So I wanted to feel that again.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what better way to do it? I mean, I have to do something to bring that vibe back to this part of town. So, man, I took it and ran with it, being a part of everything that would help the kids that I saw every day. And to be honest, the neighborhood hero came from two of the little guys from the neighborhood started calling me the neighborhood hero.
Wow.
Two of the little guys from the neighborhood.
Wow.
And they just stuck, and that's what they started calling me. So.
I think that's such a dope name, one, but two is them two words are a true depiction of what if someone's like, who is this person? You like the neighborhood hero. That is such a positive statement to be just kind of like imposed on somebody. So you didn't. So I thought, and that's what I get for thinking. I thought you grew up in the Austin community, but you went over there and just that sense of community it just didn't resonate with you. So you thought that you would feel that sense of home from LeClaire Courts into the community that is now your new community. Yes. And that makes so much sense. Fun fact. One of my boyfriends, back in the day, I caught him up in LeClaire Courts.
LeClaire Courts was
Girl, listen, right
else.
up off that 55 jump right, baby, you're right there.
Yeah.
And this is something that you don't know, and this is going to be really important to like the rest of our conversation once we get there. So I grew up in the Ida B. Wells housing project. Okay. So let me tell you something. Sister. Yeah. So, you know, it takes one to know one. Yeah. And I just think that it's so dope when we are in communities now, in contrast to LeClaire Courts, as far as violence or not. I heard you say the sense of community, how you felt it in LeClaire, but not necessarily in, not necessarily when you made it to you know, the way you moved to on the west side, but in comparison to even kind of like what was going on in the streets in the two different areas. Did that feel the same, or did that even feel different?
It felt different. It did feel different because the same things were happening. Okay. But LeClaire Courts was smaller, and I knew all of the people that was committing. You know what I'm saying? Those that they had that type of energy. Yeah. I knew them, and then in LeClaire Courts, it was like everybody knew the families. And so even if they didn't know my name, they knew what family I came from. You know what I mean? So it's like, even if it was, because trust me, LeClaire Courts was something else when I was growing up. They used to write stories about LeClaire Courts. I would read it in the paper, and I would know all of these people that were doing it. These were people that I saw growing up that I knew who they were outside of the personas. Yeah. So it was hard to detach. You know, I had to learn that quickly from older family members that would be like, listen, you can't go right here, right now, this is what's going on. But then when I got to the west side, because everything was so big, like everything was so massive. First of all, Austin is the largest community in the city. Okay. I've heard that before. It is it's way too big. Like, you, even in the area that I'm in, the reason that, you know, people kind of gravitated to the whole neighborhood hero thing is because I knew better than to think I could help all of Austin. I was like, bro, it's just way too much going on down here. Like, you gotta know your lane. Yeah, you gotta know your lane. You gotta know your lane. I'm gonna focus on this area right here where I know these people.
Can you give us the parameters of the Austin community?
So Austin,
on the south side, east side, west side, and north side.
I think it goes all the way back to Grand. Okay.
On the south side.
Yep. So you got
Grand on the south side.
Grand, and then it goes back to Harlem. Okay.
On the west side.
Yep.
Okay.
Then Roosevelt.
Okay.
And then it goes back as far as, I want to say,
Lester.
I think Cicero.
Cicero. Okay.
Yeah, because right after that you go into Garfield Park.
You're right. You're right. I went through it. I wouldn't know. Yeah. But okay. So I just dropped in your lap. You know, I too went from public housing. Ida B. Wells, first 18 years of my life. All I knew, right? To the point that you were making a moment ago, just like knowing everything and knowing everybody, and the sense of community, where I remember when there would be gang wars and drug wars and stuff like that, where, you know, the guys who were engulfed in that would tell the families, get your kids, get your grandkids, go in the house, blah, blah, blah. And it wouldn't be till everybody has deserted the land that they started to do any type of activity. So I really, really do know and understand how it resonated with you that, hey, this sense of community, this sense of belonging doesn't feel the same, right? So, but the other thing too is that I want to give you guys a quick story about, she don't remember these details either, okay? But I want to tell you guys about how special this woman is. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was representing a community mental health center, and I was one of their senior directors. And they're well known in different parts of the city. But we were entering and building a brand new building in the Austin community. Okay? I never laid eyes on this woman. This had to be about 3 years or so ago. And so my boss, who's the COO of the company, said, listen, we moving into these people's neighborhood. We need to be good neighbors, and we need to show up to the Community Advisory Council, which she had been invited to, but she sent me to represent the agency. So when I go in there, I'm sitting in there to get the best breakfast. I had never been to a morning meeting that had smothered potatoes and eggs and not at a meeting. I'm sorry, I just had not had that level of real good Saturday morning breakfast at a Wednesday morning meeting. So I was like, okay, I can come back here every single month. Now, Aisha, she, and I mean this with the most sincere way I can say it, but even in the most positive way. Baby, she flossed up in there. It was summertime shy. This woman had on a dress that I wanted to have on with the cutouts on the side, tatted up, walked up in there, they made room for her. She sat down, she's like, yeah, because what we ain't going to do is this, and what we are going to do is this, and it just doesn't make sense, and we doing this community development over here, and y'all got any questions for me? Oh, okay then, and got up and left. left my whole chin on the floor. But I was so super excited and living vicariously through you, because I'm like, that's the way Black women should have the confidence to show up as yourself. Yep. You showed up tatted up. You showed up with your cute outfit on with cutouts. I'm like, you're cool. I was in there cute, but I had no cutouts. I wanted to be a cutout stuff. Then I failed to mention that part. Can't wait to get all this stuff off the ground for me, because you got to come as you are. So that was my first time meeting her, and then the second time I met her at Chicago Fashion Week, and I made her remember me. She didn't remember me, but it was fine. I just told her about that story. But the point that I'm making is I never forgot you, and that was 3 years ago. And the next time that I ran into you was during Chicago Fashion Week. And a whole nother realm, right? Here we are, these advocates, these activists, these social community people in our daytime, but by night we fashionistas, we socialites, we in the thick of it. And that's why today's topic, roommates, is so fitting. I got a whole slew of questions for you. But I do want to reiterate and remind the roommates of what our topic is tonight, which is going from the block to the boardroom. Yes. And we just we did all that to set this up.
Yes. Yes.
In as layman's terms as possible. And I'm talking about LeClaire Court, Abbey Wells, is as layman's terms as you can put it. What does it mean for you to go from the block to the boardroom?
For me, it's always been knowing that my environment has actually been my superpower. The very communities that they try to tell the rest of the world don't produce smart people, they don't produce innovation, they don't produce intellects. We are born with we're raised, we grow up with an innate sense of how to shift, how to pivot. We are resourceful. That when I started telling people that I can go from the block to the boardroom, it came from my grandfather, who worked for streets and sanitation when I was a girl. But before that, my grandfather was a precinct captain, so he would help the elected officials who were running get into office. So he would have to walk the streets and get signatures and door knock and all of those things. And I think I might have been one of the only grandkids who I really took to him having those conversations about, listen, this is how you look at Chicago. This is Chicago politics. This is how they gonna do you. This is how they gonna talk. So like all of those years of listening to my grandfather talk, it was like he was planting a seed in me. He used to tell me all the time, like, you're gonna be the one that runs for office. Like, you're gonna be the one that does this, because this is, you know how to, you really want to fight for the people. Like you have the people at your heart. I remember going to a summer program, a summer bridge program. I got a scholarship to go to a school that was, of course, predominantly white. And part of the program was during your summers, you have to spend your summer at this bridge program. So they sent me away to this college. I had to stay on the campus, even as a sophomore, and they would pick me up every day and take me to a country club. And I had to be a golf caddy.
Exposure.
Yeah, I had to be a golf caddy for the summer. And before I went, my grandfather was like, give you the game. It's like, this is what you're gonna do. Before you go to the golf course, before you get on that course, and you're talking to these people who you know are gonna be wealthy. He said, you stop at a gas station or a store or whatever. He said, grab a newspaper. He said, you're gonna go straight to the finance section. He said, read one article. When you get on that golf course and you got your golfer one-on-one, he said, just start dropping little tidbits, talk about what you learned. And he said they're gonna be so intrigued, one, because you probably gonna be the only black girl there. Two, you have knowledge of some things that they are probably gonna be interested in. Because if they at a golf course, they about that money. Period. And he's doing that talking. He said every business deal that you could think of can be made on a golf course. So while everybody else, you know, of course, I was one of two black girls that were there. Everybody would leave after they did 18 holes. I'll stay. I'll stay. Be like, man, I carry another bag. You know, so let me get out there. And I used to tell my granddad, like, man, I'm going to use this to my advantage, because what I realized is people from my neighborhood had never been to a country club. Like, that life didn't exist to us unless we saw it on TV. So going from the block to the boardroom, some people would like to call it like code switching, but I ain't never had the code switching.
You ain't got to.
I ain't never had the code
Let me tell you something. It ain't what's on you, it's what's in you. Absolutely. You know what I mean? You ain't gotta, when you are who you are, you ain't got a fake pump, you ain't got a code switch, you don't have to do any of that. And you said this a minute ago about how being invested in your community and being that symbol of hope for your community, how that gives you your superpower, because it gives you an insight, to your grandfather's point, to things that other people are not thinking about, because you fight for the community, whereas the community behind you is fighting amongst each other, right? So that's where the mindset shift. Man, your granddaddy was a cold piece. Man, he was a cold piece to send you out there, because you know what type of mentality I talk about a lot with my children. I say to them a lot, like, you know what? If I had somebody to tell me, like I tell y'all, like, you can be anything you want to be, or to give me the type of exposure that I've given to you guys and things like that, I already be a millionaire. See, I had to navigate and learn resources and learn things and people, places, and things, and I had to create a space at people's tables even when I wasn't invited. But I've done so well at it, and I used to say that myself, Aisha. Going from, I know how to navigate so cold. I can go from the block to the baseball game on State Street, where we might even have to duck and run for cover. And I can go straight to that boardroom with somebody's CEO, and I'm sitting there a person in position, a person in power, because let's not forget that part. Absolutely. You got to still be invited to that table. And to have been able to do that in ways where I didn't have to smush it in people's faces. But think about smushing in people's faces. Have you ever had people to think about you, very specifically, like the audacity of you to think that you can even coin these terms like neighborhood hero, and I got the formula to go from the block to the boardroom. And how have you been received with maybe negativity in that realm, and how have you responded to that?
You're always going to have, and sometimes I don't even want to refer to them as haters. You're always going to have people who look at you and believe that they should have been in that space. And I think organically, when you are authentic and you carve out your own lane, like I've never been a part of the groups. You know what I'm saying? I've always kind of, I fly, I don't like to say I fly solo, but eagles soar. They go above every other bird. Eagles soar, and I had to really think about what it was that I wanted for myself, and it wasn't what everybody else wanted. So I don't often look like everybody else, dress like everybody else. I'm gonna do what makes me feel good, and sometimes that's like, I had a lot of people that used to be like, well, maybe you should tone it down, babe. You know what I'm saying? Don't say this in front of people. You don't want to ruffle nobody's feathers. So I got to the point where I was like, well, listen, every time I come in the room, I'm gonna step on your toes. I'm gonna shake the table. I know everybody in here gonna feel a certain way, but when you are comfortable, you're not growing. And I'm not living like no Viking. So either y'all gonna get right or y'all gonna get left. All right. Either way it go, that's how I'm coming. And it's not to be like intrusive. It was just that people, I did get a lot of pushback. A lot of it was from people who felt like you got this young woman coming in, and I don't look like everybody else, and I'm confident in myself, and I'm speaking the things that they'll only say behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So it's like, who she thinks she is?
Who do you
Like,
think you are?
right. You know, I am who I am in every room, but I think the thing that really got me to move away from what everybody else thought was considering what those kids thought of me.
That's right. That's right. And that is like the perfect segue. But before we even shift, one of our roommates are saying, I'm following her on TikTok. Love her rawness.
Thank you.
That's our friend Tootie. Hey, Vet, I see you, babe. Hey, Sister Ann, all the way from Arizona. I love you. So, the kids. You know, some people say, you know, we do it for the kids just on a cliche front, you know, but to go on and get some fun and do some other stuff. I have heard about, it's a few things I would love for you to expound on, but how did you transition from being the voice, becoming coined by your kids that you're working on behalf of as the neighborhood hero? How did you shift from just kind of being that voice to putting your words into actionable items, like setting forth creation of root to fruit, right, for your youth? What did that look like for you in the early stages, right? Like, what did it look like, and how did you move around and move in a way to where you eventually even got recognized by the Obama Foundation?
It was really, I think every door that opens, we're meant to take something from it, whether it works out in our favor or not.
That's it.
There was a lesson in it. For me, it was being able to work for the Chicago Park District. I worked for the Park District for 8 years. And I worked at Austin Town Hall, Moore Park, Holman Square. So I was at...
Oh, you was across the city.
Yeah, they were sending me to parks where, like, they really needed the type of energy that I came with, where, you know, the park is heavily about not just playing with the kids, but keeping them active, engaging them, bringing them into the building.
Bringing them into the building.
Yeah, like they needed that space. And one of the things that our big boss at the time noticed was, like, the kids were drawn to me, but I enjoy being with them. I enjoy. That was part of me working with these kids that helped me heal my own childhood trauma.
Of course.
And I could feel it every time I was around them. So I was the one that I would come early, I would stay late. I ran all of the camps and the after school programs. There was times where, and this is really where Root to Fruit was birthed. It was birthed out of Austin Town Hall, but a young man who, I think he was 17, he was hanging out, you know, he was doing this thing. He was hanging with the little group on one side of the park, but I lived on the other side of the park. And he didn't know that. He just always saw me at the park. And one day he was like, you on your way home? I left early for the first time. He was like, I'm gonna walk you home. So I said, all right. And we're walking, and we get to the school right before my block. And he says, man, where do you live? So I'm like, I stay on, you know, I tell him the street. And he was like, I can't go over there. I said, what? You can't go over there? Why not? And he's breaking down, like, how they're into it with my block. And I was like, what? So, like, he's telling me this, and I'm standing there like, damn, I ain't never, like, y'all have never told me this. I just, but I'm always at the park, so that's usually what I say.
See you at, you know.
Never thought, like, that's why these kids are never in my area. And I told him, I was like, you know what? I appreciate you walking me this far. And y'all be cool. I'll see y'all next week, what have you, because it was Friday. I wouldn't say it was Monday. So I go home. He walked back. I get a call from my boss that Saturday morning saying that somebody called off, and she was like, can you go open up the park? And just be there for a couple hours. So I get up going, get to the park, and I bust the corner to get to the front of the park, and it was 4 of my girls sitting on the front steps. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, why are these kids at 8 o'clock in the morning? How would they even know that I would be here? Because she just told me.
It's safe haven.
Yep. They knew, you know what I'm saying, the park would be open. But it was something, as I got closer to them, something was like, something ain't right. You know, it was like something not right. And I got to the steps, and they was like, man, they killed them last night.
Oh, my Lord.
I was like, wait, what? Like,
the one that was walking.
The one that walked me home.
Oh, my Lord.
And it shifted. I remember going into the park. I called my mother and my father, and I was like, I'm done. I was like, I can't do this. I bawled and like I could not believe it was just too close for comfort. And I tell people all the time, like I don't see how y'all so comfortable burying these kids, bro. That wasn't my kid.
Yes.
But just to know, like I felt like this shorty had a bright future. He just needed somebody to grab him and show him that. But to know that this kid walked me home, and in a matter of hours, he was gone at 17, and they did it right across the street from the park. So like it was across the street,
right in your face.
Right
then
in
the people are gonna visualize them and everything there, right?
Yep. You gotta keep. You just have to keep seeing it. But I tell people, it changed my DNA. It changed my DNA. Like some people they take that and they find a way to just kind of hide it. They never really process that type of trauma and things like that. But I remember my father telling me on the phone, my mother prayed for me, and my father told me, he said, if you give up right now, who's gonna help these kids? He's like, whatever God is trying to teach you or wherever you're supposed to be going, I need you to just hold tight. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. But then I'm at the same time, I had to remember these little girls came up here because they needed to deal with it, and the first person they could think about was me.
Wow, and the community that you were creating.
Yep.
Again, that safe space. I tell people all the time that we are only as good as the support in our communities, especially when we're growing. But let's go a step further. The older we get, we have a community. It's just a smaller community, right? Because we only gonna open up and share our ideas with certain people, right? Our community, the people we can trust with, who's gonna handle with care, whatever my roller coaster rides are, who can still have the propensity to support me and to understand that everything is not gonna be a win, but even still be able to stand their ground with you in that support. So community looks different, but we are only as big as what we can lend to our community. And some people are so selfish, and I understand that thing about self-care, right? Not allowing people, not just keep putting people above us and stuff like that. But I also understand community. That's the social worker in me. That's the community advocate in me. But when I hear you speak about how you show up, at that point, your community was literally opening up that center and caring for those young ladies that was there that needed you in that moment. It wasn't Austin, it wasn't Lake Street, it wasn't any of that. And you showed up for them in a way that helped you get coined the phrase of the neighborhood hero. So I don't want to get stuck there. When you are in spaces like that, you're serving the community from the perspective of being that kind of like community support by way of somebody else. Like this, the very first time I ever met you, I wasn't representing my brands, right? I was there representing somebody else's brand. But I'm moving in another direction. What gave you the drive, the extra oomph? You were already showing up for your community. You already talked about that. That young man, as he was transitioning, he probably thought about that conversation y'all had, and these people after me. We just don't know, you know. But what fueled you in a way that shifted you from being a servant by proxy of another to completely, I'm gonna put myself out here and I'm gonna create root to fruit and create opportunity for myself first, and then eventually for my community that is a direct reflection on the legacy I'm trying to leave?
It was honestly seeing that we had all of these leaders and people in position that looked like us, but I just never felt like all of this stuff that they said they was doing, I don't feel like it ever really touched the hood. It never really trickled down to the people. And as a resident, you know, I was probably one of the youngest people that would attend like the community meetings and you know, with the aldermen's ward nights and things like that. I was 19 going to those meetings.
What?
I was 19.
Community council, advisory council meetings.
And I would be the youngest person in there, and they didn't even they didn't embrace me. Some people did, but others, they just kind of looked like why she here, who she working for and stuff like that. But I was really honestly trying to learn like what is happening here, because I would read things in our paper about this project that's coming, or people are proposing these things, and you know, they have these organizations that are really big in our area specifically, and their name would be attached to everything. And I was just like, well, where do we fit in?
Right.
Like, how do we get attached to these type of things? And that's me thinking about the way my grandfather explained things when I was younger. And it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't like how any of this is moving.
Yeah.
Like, y'all really y'all playing with us. And I think that a lot of people consider us to be uneducated, or, you know, we're not witty because we live in those type of communities. When in actuality, we're the ones that you need to be paying attention to, because it's gonna click for somebody.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I resigned from the park because I knew having a conversation with those kids, being able to have them sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes I'm spending my Saturdays with them. In those conversations, man, the things that I was learning from those kids, I was like, y'all missing the mark. Like, y'all talking about all of this stuff that's supposed to be for young people, for youth, and how y'all setting stuff up for the next generation, but they don't even feel connected to any of this. Like, they don't mess with y'all. If I didn't come to work, them kids wouldn't come to the park. If I didn't go to work, they wouldn't go to the park.
That's connectedness.
Yeah.
Listen, you either connected or you're not. I am a Chicago Park District Bank Park, 37, 38, and 10 Rose. Listen, I when my grandmother who raised me would be like, you gonna take this butt whooping, or you gonna punish me? Anytime, give me the belt and skin. Because I gotta go to the center. I gotta hang out with my friends. I gotta have me a good time. Because, again, that was my community. That's where every day after school I could go and dance and make the friendship bracelets and do all of this stuff and have this safe place and this safe space that you're speaking about. And you obviously have been a force to reckon with from a very early age, because the first fun fact that I learned about you was that you went from one community to the next, and you seen that the community that you left from had no comparison of the feeling of community where you relocated to, and you put that burden on your back to say, at the minimum, okay. And I had this complex. When I got out of undergrad as a 21-year-old with a bachelor's degree, I thought I was going to save the world, honey, as a social worker. That was quickly met with, are you out of your mind? And I started to accept every small win as a win or a make. And that has, I'm talking about being so intimately invested and involved. And I'm talking about spiritually. I'm talking about with all my might when I say intimately. I ain't talking about nothing inappropriate. And it has cost me so many days of tears of joy. I never forget, I was standing in the United Erie Crown Theater, bringing in at one of those comedy jams a few years ago. I think it was literally, we were probably bringing in 2020. And we were doing one of them comedy jams that is always at Erie Crown on the 31st. And it was me, my little sister, my little brother, and we were going, and we were paying for our parking as we were going in, because the lady would sit down on the stool saying, listen, y'all probably want to pay now, because when you come out, it's going to be 1,000 people out here. So we took the advice, but I'm standing back on the wall with my little brother taking care of the business. And I just want to talk about how impactful you are at whatever level, and you might get the wind knocked out of you thinking you're going to save the world. But when you take it incrementally and get all involved in ways that is going to support and help someone, this is what it looks like. I was standing on the wall, feet hurting. I'm just getting there. And a young lady was looking at me as her boyfriend was paying for the parking. And she's looking at me, I'm not paying no attention, but she's looking at me. So then she's walking towards me, and she said, she got close enough to me, but not too close. So she said, is your name Tamika? I was like, I was like, yeah, my name's Tamika, but I don't know who you are. Who are you, young lady? She was a young lady. I said, who are you, young lady? And she said, I remember when I was in the DCFS shelter of when the teens were pregnant. She said, I was 14 years old with the baby and pregnant. She said, you were my therapist at that shelter. Because people, they were DCFS wards, and they would get pregnant, and unfortunately, their foster parents would kick them out, and now they at the shelter, right? So this was a pregnant shelter. Either you had a kid or you was gonna have a kid or something. But this young lady was under the age of 15. She was pregnant and had like a 9-month-old. And she said, you used to sit, she said, I hated the light, and I used to always cry. She said, you used to sit with me on the floor, cut off all your lights, let your waterfall little thing you played, turn the lights on, and you would sit with me, you would listen to me, you would let me scream, you would let me holler, you would hold my baby, you would clean the nose, you would do this, you would do that, and you would cry with me. I'm like, I know I done a lot of stuff. Dang, I would cry with you too. She said to me, Miss Smith, you would cry. She said that I knew that this was my career, this very career that I'm explaining, was my career probably in my late 20s, early 30s. With the company that I was with, and I was doing that type of work. I wasn't working for DCFS, I was working with a company that had the DCFS contract. And I remembered it. I knew exactly what she was talking about, but I couldn't remember her. And she said her name, and she said her baby's name, and then all of a sudden I got it. But the point that I'm making is that roommates, we cannot save everything from everybody from everything. We can't change every situation and every circumstance. But this is what true community looks like, that them kids knew that they can come and count on you and be there. And then where you had to get from a place to, I can't save all of Austin, but I can save and figure out ways to be impactful in my community that serves them in a way that I show up in the way that I know how to show up, and that's just a different way of showing up. So I want to thank you for that, because there are ways that we don't know how to navigate in that. You know, sometimes we get stuck in places that we can't climb our way out of, and not because we in something, but because we don't know how to show up for other people, right? So you've been showing up for the people over there. What has been the most fulfilling part of your journey as a community advocate and as a community servant?
Being able to see that what I was being led to do was bigger than me. It was never about me. I know I learned really quickly that for a lot of people, when they get into this type of work, it's an easy hustle for them. It's a check for a lot of people. It's grant money for a lot of people. For me, it was realizing, like, man, if I could, I remember having a conversation, because the last like maybe 7-8 years, it's been mostly young men that have gravitated and been a part of Roots and Fruit and ASAP. Okay. And I remember talking to these young men because nobody had their father. The one young man who did have his father died early on. And I was like, man, what is it about all of these boys that keep drawing them? You know, like, I can talk to them, I can correct them,
receive you.
Yeah, I can sit with them and tell them about, like, man, all right, you messing up right here. This is what you need to do.
That's what you need to do.
And I think the most fulfilling thing for me was a conversation we had, and I said, man, do y'all trust me? We were sitting at a table. We do this thing called breaking bread. And the breaking bread was my way of bringing them into the house. And I would cook this big dinner, and we'd all sit around the dining room table, and we'd eat dinner together. And at the breaking bread, I would ask maybe 1 or 2 questions, and I just let the conversation flow. And in those conversations, what I realized was a lot of them, they didn't have the exposure, but what they really needed was somebody to take the time to, one, show them what they could be, but also they needed examples of what could make it out the hood, right? Like, they needed to see what you could be. So I used to ask them, like, listen, do y'all trust me? And when those boys told me they trusted me, and I was like, if y'all can give me like 5 years, y'all give me 5 years, I can't change your life, but I can at least give you the blueprint. I can give you some tools so that you can change your life. And we gonna forever stay connected. Right. And I'm gonna make sure that if I can't do it, that I can connect you to somebody that can walk with you the rest of the way. So the biggest thing for me was everything that we've done with Roots of Fruit, with ASAP, with the Lurie project, and the project that we have coming in the spring. Everything has been put into models. And I tell the guys all the time, like, when people ask me, I'm like, well, I didn't create this by myself. This was me and my kids. They get credit for creating the models because everything that I took from it was what they talked about. And I just showed them how to put these things in place. That's how the ASAP Safe Zone came about. A dinner and me asking, what do you need in this life, in this neighborhood to feel safe and feel supported? When them kids started talking, I was like, oh, I know what we about to do.
And ain't nothing like being put in position. Being put in position, what I just heard from you is you're giving them an outlet to be creative, you're giving them an outlet to be expressive, you're giving them an outlet to be free to be themselves and to lend their creative expression or even their emotional intelligence space, right? And you are finding ways to incorporate that into the business of it, which is what it's supposed to be, which you turn support into tangible resource, right? So that ain't nothing like a creative thinker, but when you layer that with the person who has the propensity to not just create, but to also create opportunity. And this is what I'm hearing from you. I'm hearing that you had all these wonderful ideas. You allowed your students, your young people, I know we call them a plethora of things as long as it's respectful. You are allowing them to pour into you so you can understand. Tell me what you need to stay. Tell me what you need to trust me. Because we do have to hear from the people that we're servicing, because otherwise it's not holistic care. You can lend what it is that you want to lend, but at the end of the day, it's their option to choose if they're gonna go with the choice that you lend it, right?
Absolutely.
I heard you recently talk about on your one of your socials about one of the reasons that it's hard for us as a community. You didn't say whether black or whatever, but how it's hard for us to grow community and grow our brands and grow our networks and net worth, because it's a difference.
Yep.
It's because we refuse to talk to strangers.
Yep. Yep.
Can you lay that out for our roommates on what you meant, and then help us conceptualize that, like, what does that look like?
We have, and I'm gonna be honest, very transparent. I was talking to my people, and what I realized was that in a lot of the spaces that I had been in and tables that I would sit at, I was like, why am I the only one here? For some people, it's a badge of honor for them to be the only one. They love to be the only one. But for me, it's like,
ain't even real representation, but go ahead.
They're really very watered down, as my daughter would say, they washed. They washed.
I like that. They watered down, washed.
I just didn't, I never understood it, and I would always be, in my mind, it wasn't a burden, it was a responsibility.
Hey.
Right? It was a responsibility, and I felt like, all right, the way I show up in these spaces sets the tone so that when I'm out the way, whoever comes behind me, slide right on in.
Right.
And that was the mindset even with the young people and working with them. I've been telling these kids since they were in 6th and 7th grade, one of y'all have to replace me. Everybody in here has a responsibility. We're going to learn these different roles that need to exist in order for this to be a business. And my goal has always been to remove myself from Root to Fruit and hand it over to them.
That's it.
It's theirs. I was just helping them to lay the foundation. But to be able to do that, I had to be able to talk to different people. And I realized I would ask, the community, like, why is it that y'all feel so strange when it comes to networking? Because you could drop me in any room.
Hello.
Room. I'm there. I'm working the room. I am working the room. And I even got to the point where I started to teach my young people how to do the same. So the Obama Foundation, you know, tapped into us because I started taking every meeting I went to. I didn't care if it was a corporate meeting, if it was a sponsor, whatever it was. I need at least 2 of them with me.
Yes.
So if you invite me, please know that at least 2 of these kids are coming with me.
Yes.
Because the understanding is anything that I say or however I show them, however I show up, I need them to see it, I need them to connect with it, I need them to learn hands-on that eventually I'm going to sit in this seat.
Yes.
So I had to teach them how to navigate those spaces. And when I tell you, now it's like some meetings I don't even go to.
Yeah.
Hey, Tay, I need you to go to this meeting. Les, I need you to go to that meeting. And I can go do my thing. But that came from learning how to talk to strangers and stop thinking. A lot of our people had these blinders on, and they like, one person told me, she was like, I don't feel like my vocabulary is good enough to like talk in those spaces. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you have a business that you want to grow, but you think the only people you're supposed to talk to is people you know? Oh no. We got to get out of that.
Yeah.
So I've been pushing to my people that your network is your network.
Yes,
so
yes,
if
yes.
all you know is the people from around the way, that's as far as you're going to go.
And you will hit that glass ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I know we've talked about audacity a lot, but it's been more so in the professional realm. How did you, and you may have, I think you spoke about this earlier, but I'm going to talk about it from a perspective of people that you care about, people that, you know, because have you ever found that someone that you may have mentored, someone who may have complimented you for being exactly who you are, at some juncture shift and change their perspective, where they go from admiring you to, you know, I don't want to use the word envy and stuff like that, but they go into a different, weirder space to where one juncture you was this and then now, as you grow. The point I'm making is as you're growing, right? We're going from the block to the boardroom, right? And that's what we're talking about. How has that been met with some of your closest people that you grew up with? Because I'm gonna tell you, it's one thing. Something about that no new friends thing just make me cringe.
Yeah.
She don't know y'all. We just one of my new friends.
Yes, I agree.
But listen, I used to, you know, the song was cute and all.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, I ain't made it nowhere that my heart desired with old friends. And I don't mean it like you not my friend no more. What I mean is I ain't been able to access those desires until I started to communicate with strangers. Until I started to sit in CAG meetings and stuff like that to get exposure to who the community is and who I am to the community, right? But those people are more likely to hear from you. They're more likely to believe in you. They're more likely to back your stuff. How have you navigated that realm of things?
I've had quite a few people who, and let me say this, if they admired you at one point and they found themselves shifting, it is my belief that it was never truly admiration.
That's it.
It was never truly admiration.
That's it.
I consider myself to be a trench baby. Okay, and when you're a trench baby, again, you have a different way of thinking about things. Like you might not even be. Some people have to be real rah-rah. They got to be loud. They, you know, they got to be argumentative and all that. I will get right out your way, like because what you have to understand is, I will always, my presence will always be felt, whether I'm in the room or I'm not in the room. And what I've learned is a lot of people that came, you know, my way and, oh, I want to learn from you, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm always gonna, you know, I'm not too friendly with people off the bat, you know, and I understand the space that I'm in. So I let people do what they want to do, so I know how to respond to them. So, you know what I'm saying, I people watch. I sit back with my people, I let people talk, and things like that. But I did learn quickly that some people can see the light on you, and they gravitate to it.
They attach for reasons that ain't complimentary to you, one, or even in a supportive way, but in a way that's going to be beneficial for them.
Oh, absolutely. They you know, energy vampires. They know what they doing.
Oh,
they try to be I don't want to say they try to be slick with it, but people absolutely try to pick apart pieces of you. And I watched one young person, not even a young person, we about the same age, might even be a little bit older than me. But I mean, she came on like, oh sis, I just want, come to every meeting I had, every breakfast I had, everything that I was doing. I just want to learn from you. I want to learn from you. But when it came time to where she felt like she had watched me enough, and now she could compete with me. She was on my level. When the community was like, well, you're not her. Then it became, and I was like, but the whole time, I ain't did nothing to you.
The community reminded you, and that's just really the Holy Spirit, honey, because what it does is it doubles back, and it lets you see, like, for real, like, we not biting the hands that feed us. We not, and sincerity and being genuine is almost lost in kind of like relationships that's older. Like I have, like in my newness of development and network and growing network and all of that stuff, it's I got a few, I tell people all the time, like, I pray to God and ask God, like, remove anything and everybody that's not for me. And, I joke, but it's the truth, that I got a best friend, one other friend, and then like 1.5 cousins. He just took everybody away from me, right? And I say that jokingly, but I mean it, because as you venture out and you do things that is, people set standards for your life. You know what I mean? And like you said, to the point about that young lady, this is a person that wanted to learn from you, and a person that wanted to understand how to grow in the business that you have been studying in since you was working and being a caddy at a golf course, et cetera, et cetera. But you've learned to navigate. You said something a moment ago that you're going to always show up as you are, one, and two, that you have the propensity. We just talked about this on probably the last episode before last, talking about knowing the difference about being either a thermostat or a thermometer.
Okay.
Let me tell you something, because one of them has the potential to change the temperature of the room. The other one only tells you the temperature of the room. So you gotta, I ain't never unadmired a person I ever admired. And I probably only admired you for this. And you probably ain't done nothing else but that. But I honor you for giving, like the person, it's a couple people that I love to give credit to for cultivating my style and fashion sense. And Tiffany is one of them. And then it's other few people along the way that I've met that I've been inspired in one capacity or another, but I've always given them that credit for helping to develop my fashion sense. But it's people that might come and bite my style and never get, you met them, baby, they was only wearing black and white. I encouraged you to change your style, change your this, do that, but they'll never give you the credit, and I don't need it. Right? It's not, you don't need it, because you are that. You are the essence. You are the essence of that. And for that very person, that's why it didn't work out for her. The fact that you are using me and my gift to help you enter into rooms that you were afraid to even, you couldn't even think about it. And that's the thing. We have to open up our minds, roommates. We have to open up our minds and believe the things that our mind is telling us. Because remember, the mind only thinks about the desires of our hearts. The Bible tells us that. And then you have the belief, and then you work towards, because faith without works is dead. But once you can do all of that and you can make it make sense, God will bring it to fruition for you. So I don't preach to the people, but I give them the teachings, because at the end of the day, you just hung in on a few of those things that I was talking about. Now we go into closing segment. And generally what closing segment looks like is like I'm telling our roommates, giving them maybe even biblical references, or even I'm giving them just tidbits about life or bits of advice and stuff like that. I want you to think about a couple of things for our closing segment. But I'm gonna give you a couple of comments that our roommates are giving for you.
Okay.
But I just give that bad you a little tag to close us out. So what our neighborhood hero, aka Aisha Oliver, is gonna do for us is she's gonna do closing segment, and we'll make sure y'all know how that goes already. But I don't know what she's gonna say because she don't even know I was gonna ask her to do this. So listen, this is new to both of us. But I want to read a couple of these comments here that we're saying, that you all are saying. Somebody said, I love her.
Thank you.
Somebody else said, she's so dope. Somebody else said, you know what, we need to try and fail.
Yeah.
Try it out.
Yeah.
And Frida, I'm gonna call your name on this one because I like that. Yeah. Frida, nothing beats a failure but a try. And I know that's so cliche. But I'm going to tell you what my grandmother always told me. The only regret you will have in life is those things that you didn't seek after. So you can seek something out and fail, and you're like, oh, well, I tried it. This is a notch up under my belt. I tried it. But what you can also do is never try it out. Imagine if I kept Roman Has It on the shelf. God had been telling me for 2-3 years, Aisha, to do it. And I finally... I said, I got to hear from you enough to make it come to life because this ain't my idea, God. This ain't my idea. You know, I don't have to be doing this. And every time even since I started, by the way, roommates, we on episode 25 since starting on, this is a milestone. That's big. That's big. Since July 30th. Every Tuesday or Wednesday, because sometimes we get the swap days, depending on what I got, because my baby play basketball, blah, blah, blah. With the exception of one Tuesday, from July 30th to now, this is our 25th episode with one cancellation.
No.
So, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
It's a milestone. I'm sitting here with our neighborhood hero, and you guys are talking about how dope she is. You guys are talking about how... you guys follow her on TikTok and that you like her energy. And they gonna talk about energy over here, child. These people hear something else. I love them though. And but I see this comment here, and our good. This is one of my spiritual advisors. I love her dearly. And she says, y'all over here coming now, twins, because I tried to read this comment and y'all keep like, okay. The Bible says, come from amongst them, be ye separated. Darkness don't have nothing to do with light. So stop apologizing because you were chosen and baby, you are the light.
Yes.
And that was to you. See, because I get this goodness all the time. Oh. This is my spiritual advisor, Dolores Baby. She takes care of me and keeps me intact.
Thank you.
But I want you to take our closing segment. That can mean for you whatever you want. Of course, our title was going from the block to the boardroom, but we can get nitty and gritty public housing. We can get high and mighty Jesus Christ, or anywhere in between. But I would love for you to close us out with giving my roommates some tidbits on how to navigate going from the block to the boardroom in whatever capacity you feel the need to share that with them on.
I will absolutely, first and foremost, always remember something my dad told me. Mind y'all, I am the child of 16-year-old parents who figured it out. And they wanted my life to be better than theirs was. And my dad used to tell us all the time that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Mm-hmm. And that would always resonate with me when I felt like I was maybe out of my comfort zone, or maybe I'm doing a little bit too much, or maybe I need to pull back. But I want you all to think about the amount of times where somebody either told you that you could do something or poured into you. And I happen to come from a family who didn't have a lot of money, but I consider them to, I grew up in a very wealthy household. I had two parents that they didn't have a lot of the love and covering that they desired to give their children. So some people find it real hard to accept when you have what I like to call Kanye confidence. I have Kanye confidence. I grew up in a household where my parents told me every day that I could be whatever I put my mind to, whatever I was diligent and I worked towards. They always found a way. They always found a way. And because of that, I want people to understand that that same confidence and knowing how my parents poured into me, it made me realize that there is a whole generation of kids and some adults out here who have never been spoken to. No one has ever spoken life into them. My parents spoke life into their kids. They spoke life into me. Even to this day, I'm 40 years old. My mama will call me, and my dad will text me, and they just want to make sure that I'm still holding things down. And I really think that it's something that gets looked over a lot. We talk about these young people and their behaviors and the way that they're acting, but I don't think people realize that it takes, and I'm proof of it, as well as being able to pour into this next generation of young people. And I see how they respond and how they take what I tell them they can be and how they can do it. Not only that, we have to start showing up. I show up for a lot of things that have absolutely nothing to do with Root to Fruit for those young people, for the seniors in our community. People need to see and feel that support sometimes, and it used to be weighty for me because I'm like, now I'm being pulled in all these different directions. But for some people, that was the key to everything that they needed to be unlocked was, okay, she's showing up for me, she's here, and I'm cheering them on. When the kids had baseball games, football games, basketball games, and their parents couldn't come, their mamas couldn't come, senior nights, and they ain't had nobody to walk them down the aisle. Baby, I done did 8 up. I've done 8 proms, graduations, everything. Those moments are moments that lock me in for life with kids who live within an 8-block radius, specifically an 8-block radius around me. And some of these kids are now 30, and I might have met them when they was 15, 16, and their relationship still stands. So I want people to understand, you know, for me, it wasn't a plan that I had. Much like you, I do know now as an adult, I couldn't accept it as a teenager. I just couldn't understand it. But I was chosen, and it was bigger than me. And who knows better about what it is to have trauma and what it is to be hurt, and to see that same grandfather that poured into me become a drug addict and ultimately leave this earth in that matter. So everything that I do, like I have a goal and a vision to be the person that remembers those family members that I lost to these streets, to the drugs, to the gangs, to this life. I want to be that person that remembers them through my actions and not just my words. So remember to speak life into yourself, first of all. Speak life into any young person or any people that are around you. It grounds them. It does. They might not say anything at the time, but when I tell you the fact that I can move the way that I do comes from the fact that I know I've always had people that told me, no matter what the rest of the world say, you can be whatever you put your mind to. Whatever you say you want to do, you can do it. If you're diligent enough, if you're determined enough, if you have the drive, it can be done. And now I'm at the point where there are things that my parents couldn't do that I've been able to accomplish. And now it's just like, all right, I got to keep going, because I have not only my kids, but I have younger siblings, but also I have all of these young people in the neighborhood that they're watching me. Because for many of them, I was the neighborhood mom, and that turned into the neighborhood hero. So it's a blessing. It's bigger than me. I wear it proudly. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'm honestly, if I can be completely transparent, I'm not following my own plan. I am following God's plan. So when I get the instructions, that's the direction I go in. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do this, do that, do that. It's like, all right, this is what you need to do. This is the direction you go in, and that's how I go. So it works out when you take it off of you and you follow the lead of the Most High. That's us.
Listen. Well, you speaking to a good old choir, because they know what we do over here. You did the close the segment. I ain't add nothing but Proverbs 19 and 17 on top of that, and then I gotta go. Okay, so I'm gonna remind my good old roommates. Do you see all them hearts?
know.
You know what? I admire this young lady, so I ain't gonna even be hating on her hearts. So, you know, she deserves it. Get a lady all her flowers, okay?
Thank you.
Listen, I am gonna close us out here. And we're closing out where we started. And y'all know I usually had 2 biblical verses, but today, Proverbs 19 and 17 was as fitting as we needed it. And it reminds us that whoever is kind to the vulnerable lends to the Lord, and he, Lord Jesus, will reward them for what they have done. Roommates, we have come to the end of one of the biggest milestones of this podcast, episode 25, though we are in season 2, episode 3. I love you guys. I cannot do this without you. Aisha, I appreciate you, all of your hard work, all of your commitment to the community. You are welcome here at Roman Has It at any juncture, at any time. And we are faring you a wonderful farewell. Roommates, we love y'all. Good night.
Thank you.